If our podcast is helping you with your mental health, Zach and I would be so grateful if you could hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. It's a simple action, but it really helps a lot. Thank you. On the first day I walked into Zach's therapy room in my hometown of Dublin, Ireland, I was one seriously lost dude. I had no direction and no real knowledge of what I needed from life. Zach told me that he'd help me to find my authentic self, whatever that meant. 3 years later, I had made some serious changes, and Zach even helped me to get sober.
When I first met Stephen, he was a very lost soul, and I wasn't even sure to what degree the platform of therapy could help him. What followed was a journey to which I had the privilege to be part of, as I watched this young man dig deep and disrupt his old behaviours and beliefs. He eventually walked out of my room a changed man, and I believe he did find a more authentic self.
So despite all of my healing and growing, it's not over, because I'm back for more. This is one man
and his therapist. Well, then let's begin.
Cool. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. It feels like an age. It's been a while since we've had the chance to do a bit of work. So, Happy New Year. And I'll ask you, how are the holidays? And not in the context of, the domesticity of it all, but directly in the context of your mental health. How were you in yourself during the holidays over the last number of weeks? How are things?
Presently things are good. And I mean, throughout the holidays, there was nothing actually wrong with anything. There are a couple of things that definitely stuck out from the holidays, which are worth mentioning, I think. Generally I was fine. I have as we've been discussing in recent sessions, I have a kind of a pain threshold when it comes to being social. And once I get past it, I need to withdraw. And I'm recognizing more and more that that's okay. It's just who I am. And I need to do that for self-preservation. However, it's difficult because I live with Rebecca, who is, on one hand, like me in ways that she loves to be kind of in a kind of a solitary world, just the two of us. And then, and like I say, I love being social as well, but Rebecca loves it a lot more than me, and more frequently than me.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult at a time like Christmas to find the balance. And I got tired of it. I got really tired of it, because there was a lot of people always around, and it just doesn't suit me. And there was 2 moments that stand out as where I let myself down. And one was, we went on Christmas Eve. Here is more the kind of the Christmas. And we went over to Rebecca's parents' house. And, they're very relaxed people, so it wasn't a huge thing. But basically, I'm vegetarian. I eat fish, but I don't eat meat. And Rebecca's the same. But on a rare occasion, I'll have a bit of meat if I know where it's come from. Like, for example, if it's come from the garden, which is very common here in Romania, for them to kill their own cow, or for them to they always kill their own chickens. And so it's just very normal for that to be a thing. And sometimes I say, I'll go on, it's okay then. I feel okay with it. However, recently I've made a decision that that's not okay for me, just in my own head, and I don't want to eat animals really. I eat fish, but that's it. I don't want to eat animals on the ground, and that's fine for me. And I don't push it on anyone. I don't preach to anyone. It's just for me. But I hadn't communicated that to Rebecca, who is also the same as me, never eats animals. But anyway, she's in the headspace of, sure, he sometimes has them. Anyway, there were these potatoes on the table that looked very nice. And I said to Rebecca, are there any of those potatoes around? Because people had them on their plates. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'll get you some. They were cooked in chicken, though. They were cooked next to chicken, like in the kind of chicken fat and everything. I was like, oh, no, it's fine then, don't worry. And she was like, oh, no, I'll get them. I was like, no, it's fine, Rebecca, it's fine. And then her brother was like, what does he want? He wants the potatoes from with the just, and And I was like, no, actually, it's okay. I won't have them. It's okay. No, I'll get them now. And then her brother puts them down on the plate, and they're like loads of little bits of chicken all over it.
Mm.
And I was just like, and then his wife, the brother's wife, Angela, said, uh, there's chicken on that, knowing that I don't really like chicken or want to eat meat. And anyway, and the brother said, it's fine, it's fine. And I said, actually, it's not fine. And I stood up and went back and put the potatoes back in the pot. And I'm kind of cringing saying the story, and I know it's a long story, but I've really been fighting with the whole story in my head over the last couple of weeks, because it's like, it talks a lot about what we've been discussing about boundaries and about like, when is it okay to be kind of forthright and when is it okay just to be soft about things. And I really can't figure out whether I did the right thing in that moment. But it wasn't actually about the anti-meat thing or anything. It was just because Rebecca pissed me off and she kept pushing it. And I was like, no, it's not okay to keep pushing this. I don't want this thing. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. Well, the devil's in the detail, and it's a detailed story. But
sorry,
no, don't apologize. I love detail. Detail is great. Arrowing down on the minutiae of a story is really important in therapy work. So because I'm getting a full picture of what was going on for you. And yeah, I can hear how overwhelmed you became by it. I can also see the sort of, sort of not innocence, but sort of just the social naivety of people at the table. They were just being polite, wanted you to have the potatoes. Rebecca wasn't maybe thinking appropriately in that moment, but there's the social pressures, there's the meal, accommodating everyone. There's lots going on there. And let's remember Christmas. You said, earlier you were talking about getting the balance right. I always think Christmas is anything but balance. Nothing is balanced at Christmas. Emotions, families, interactions. It's always top heavy and dramatic in some way. So in this moment, when you did the stand up and the walk off, actually it's not fine moment, where your frustration overspilled. Do we agree that you were very overwhelmed in that moment?
Yeah, it was such a split second, Yeah. It was just, I just couldn't control it. And I guess it was partly, if I'm really honest, it was partly to do with making a stand about who I am. Because I feel that here, I mean, it's the same anywhere. It's the same in, it doesn't matter whether in Romania or in Ireland or anywhere really in the world. Being someone who doesn't eat meat is a bit of a battle, with the rest of humanity, to kind of, and I don't want it to be that. And I don't want to be the person having arguments about left or right or black or white, or, I don't think it's useful. And I don't think I'm going to change anyone's mind. And I've learned that. And so it's very icky for me. But it is also at the same time, I want to scream at the rooftops, like.
Well, I hear that you're not perfect, but you are trying to do your bit. You're trying to do your piece, and I can hear how you just want to be left alone to do your piece without having to always defend your position. You talked earlier on about how sometimes you need to walk away, be by yourself for your preservation. I think it's more so for your regulation, to regulate. For you to regulate yourself well, you need the solo space. You need to be able to step away, whether you're stepping away from the dinner table or just retreating into your own self-soothing space at home from your relationship. How you regulate yourself is very important. And when it comes to self-regulating,
the word, how I regulate myself.
Yeah, regulate, rather, because you're talking about for my own preservation. Sometimes I, need to withdraw and be by myself. And I think it's more so for your own regulation rather than preservation. It's how to regulate the emotional self. And For a lot of people, withdrawing into their own space, going into their own cave, into their own solo space, it's a place for sort of a reset of their emotional regulators within themselves. It's a great opportunity for a reset, and I know you do benefit from the solo space, which
Mm-hmm.
is good. Um, but when it comes to the idea of regulating yourself, regulating your emotional self, what's your thoughts around that?
Well, I know I mean, since the new year has come in, so this is, it's funny. I always feel like it feels like we're meant to. You always seem to weave the right. I don't know, tapestry, if you like. I don't know, because if I since the new year has come in, I've managed to start to come back to my place of being able to just, of really good practices. And I feel like a different person. Um, so I feel like I'm coming, you say there's no balance over Christmas. I feel like I'm coming back into balance. And I've been very like, I've been trying to do this thing for a long time over the last few months and it's a very simple thing, but I know it works, but it's really hard. It's really hard for me to do. And that is get up at 6 o'clock, 6 days a week. And it sounds, it's just a time in the day, but it actually makes it a phenomenal difference to my entire existence if I follow through with it. And I was thinking about it today as we were coming towards this session because I wanted to talk about it because I remember when I was getting sober and you said, it's always clunky. You always use that word clunky.
Hmm.
It's always clunky and, nothing's perfect. And we it can be a bit messy at the start. And it kind of feels like that with this particular little project of mine. It's been a bit clunky, as in I've had a number of failed attempts. But this week, I've done it the last 4 days in a row. Now, it's only 4 days, but I can't tell you the difference it's making in terms of me feeling on top of everything and feeling like I'm kind of really regaining a certain level of real balance and real kind of self-care and really good things, and also an understanding of what's important, and seeing like I'm meditating every day and I'm looking at myself going, okay, work is taking, that whole thing we've been talking about, work as well. It's like, yeah, work is like massive, man. You got to scale back and pay more attention to that beautiful soul that you promised your, life to in many ways. And, there's lots of things waking up for me,
Hmm.
and now, and
You're
so,
sounding in charge again.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's feeling good. But my problem is that, the evidence is there that I can commit to things, and I can follow through and I can make things happen. But there's also overwhelming evidence if you were to look at if we were to be in a courtroom and kind of present the evidence of what I've achieved versus what I've failed in terms of these little promises I make to myself. There's a lot of litany of failed promises there as well, which, so really what I'm saying is I really want to follow through on this one. I really do, because I really think that it's a game changer. And the reason I'm saying it out loud is because I want to be accountable.
Hmm. Yeah. Just the fact that you want to be accountable. How great is that? How great is that? And 4 days in, already feeling a marked difference just with 4 days. 4 days. There's all these theories about how many times you have to repeat a new action before it becomes, a locked in habit. Some say 25 days, 30 days, whatever, 60 days. 4 days and you feel a difference. So that's great. The idea that you do the same time every day repeatedly, loving that. From the point of view of your circadian rhythms and your sleep pattern and so forth, the idea that you get up at 6 and that within 10 minutes you see natural light in the sky, and you do that every day for 6 days, what a wonderful starting point for anyone's life on a daily basis. That's great. On day
Yeah.
7, when you have that lie-in, may I suggest a little trick I use,
Mm-hmm.
that even though you want to lie in, still set the alarm and get up at 6 for that 10 minutes, get that light into your eyes, and then go back to bed for the nap. But
Okay.
still give your body the same trigger point even on the 7th day, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
I feel as if it makes a little bit of a difference. I've no data behind that. I've no scientific evidence for you, but just for what it's worth.
Can I ask you a personal question?
You can.
Do you do you have a time you get up at the same every day?
Yeah, my lifestyle at the moment means that my get up time every day is determined by obligations. So it starts with our 2 lovely dogs. They just need to be put out straight away, and I'm the dog guy. In the morning,
Uh-huh.
generally, I put the dogs out. So I know the dogs have to be put out, and then depending on rota and responsibilities at home, um, people have to be helped in getting out to college, jobs, and so forth. So there's a lot of domestic obligation that sort of brings on a natural get up time in the morning. So I
Mm-hmm.
find it's sort of determined by external pieces rather than having to be controlled by me. And now, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I have to respond to my responsibilities and get up on time. But from that point of view, I don't find it too difficult. The weekend, when everyone's lying on, again, what I shared with you earlier, I tend to get up at the same time anyway, just even temporarily, let the dogs out, then go back to bed for a nap as such.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of the same time every day. I think it's really beneficial. Actually, the evidence tells us it's really beneficial to keep that regularity, to keep that same time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
So I guess does that answer? I don't know whether that answered your question about being coming back in. Was the word you used was regulation? Or
self-regulating, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yes, it does. And you, with that commitment of the same time, as you say, brings on a sense of being in charge. Um, you described in a number of positive ways. You talked about your meditations, your overall wellness being better. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Um, and and when you blip and when you miss the 6 a.m. slot because you're a little unwell, under the weather, or just sleep through the alarm or whatever it might be, that the self forgiveness is nearly immediate, no big deal,
Mm-hmm.
and that you just aim and try for that target as often as you can. I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes. Is from Bruce Lee. I I was a fanatic of karate and Wadaroo karate in my youth,
Oh yeah.
and enjoyed it, and at one point became a teacher. And
Oh.
Bruce Lee once said, um, "I'm I'm not afraid of the guy who can kick 10,000 different ways. I'm afraid of the guy who can kick one way and has practiced it 10,000 times."
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we do the same action over and over again, whether it's getting up at 6 a.m. or practicing a roundhouse kick, the idea of repetition, the repetition of any singular action is magical.
Yeah.
It's magical. And 4 days in, you're feeling a little bit of the magic. Can you imagine 40 days in, 400 days in? Oh my Lord. So the commitment to the repeated action always brings reward. Always. And I think
Yeah.
similarly as well when it comes to bad habits or addiction, on the other end of the scale, clearly always brings trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah, it's nice as well because what I'm doing, you see, is I literally get out of bed and, like you with the dog, come to my studio, which is a few minutes from my house, and then I'm straight in, and then I just record. I have one sleep story prepared the night before, and then I record that sleep story for my YouTube channel. So
mm,
I'm half asleep when I do it,
yeah,
and so basically, it's doing a really nice thing as well, like first thing, and then but it also relieves the pressure of the day then because Then I go and walk the dog in the forest, and then I go back and have a nice long breakfast. And I already know that I have work boxed off, like some work boxed off, before I've even kind of settled into the day properly, you know?
Yeah, you're ahead of the posse. You're 2, 3 steps ahead of everyone else. That idea of beating everyone to it in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
getting a bit done even just before other people are opening their eyes and stretching, that you're ahead of everyone else. Lovely feeling, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's
It
really
really
nice.
is.
It's hard, like, you know, it's really hard to be like that's. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like it's. I said it to my friend the other day, and he wrote back like a stupid message. Like I think I can be a bit too like I don't know, a bit like too deep sometimes, but I feel very attached to these little ideas I come up with.
Yeah,
But I have 3 words that I've attached to for this year, and I keep saying them to myself: balance, consistency, and softening. And the biggest one of those for me is consistency. If I know that if I can find consistency, I can go anywhere. You know, I can
yeah.
do anything. I am superhuman if I find consistency. I haven't quite found it yet in my life. I find moments of brilliance, and then I fall again, or not fall. Fall's the wrong word, but I don't stick to my guns. You know, and it's like, and then I stop believing that I can do these things. You know, these
I,
things that I say to myself I can do. You
do
know,
you stop believing, or do you just temporarily get put off?
no, I stop believing. I stop
Really?
believing that I can be consistent. Yeah, that I can really be someone who you know, yes, I got sober, right? That's probably the biggest achievement I've ever achieved, right? Big deal. But that was like mammoth work.
Yeah.
But like now, like, you know, these other things, I you know, I don't know what it's going to take. You know, I don't know what it's going to take for me to really follow through. Is it being accountable to someone like you? Is it, um, is it that or is that disempowering as a thing to, you know, like, yeah, I'm asking a question here. I think you know the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I do. I think to aim for consistency, repeated consistency, to aim for that in your life is admirable and very affirming, and it's the right way to go about it. When you inevitably reach roadblocks and you, at least temporarily, fail in being consistent, and you have a blip, a moment, in that moment, of temporary failure, in that moment of pause, how you respond to your action of stopping, how you respond to that is key.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, you respond dramatically, you know, sort of in that over the top way of, not throwing all your toys out of the pram, but you do have quite a dramatic and hard hitting response to yourself on that. You're
Mm-hmm.
quite hard on yourself in that moment. I can't do it. Look, yeah, you get angry with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear your frustration and anger with yourself in those moments when you lose belief in yourself. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that in a moment of temporary pause, when you understandably, fail in being consistent all the time, the fact that your response to it is to dramatically stop believing in yourself is quite disproportionate, unhelpful, a little bit cruel. And therefore, I would say the best way to live and achieve a very consistent yet somewhat clunky lifestyle is to, yes, keep aiming high and push for your consistency every day. But in those moments of pause or those moments of failure, that maybe we think and talk now about how to respond a little bit differently, how to feel the pain of the fail, but then time out, stop, think consciously about how to think differently about that moment, rather than going
Mm-hmm.
into the borderline self-hatred of not believing in yourself anymore.
Yeah.
How might you think differently in that moment, do you think?
Well, I guess I could. I mean, I know the answer that I think you would expect is that
Well, don't mind read. Just you're overthinking that now. Just
okay.
go with your gut.
I've tried to do it. This is what I've tried to do, and I do achieve it to some extent, but I still feel very depressed by it anyway. Is that I try and say to myself, look, you're human. It's you're doing your best. For example, I failed on Monday, right? So I failed on Monday, even though on Sunday night I was ready to work to wake up at 6. I failed on Monday, and then I was so pissed off. I said to Rebecca, I'm starting to not believe, literally what I've just said to you, I'm starting not to believe myself about these commitments I make. And then I went through the day and I started to be kinder to myself. And then I said, do you know what, man? And actually your voice kind of came into my head. And I was like, do you know what though? Yesterday on a Sunday, I got up at 7 and I worked all day on the Sunday till 10 o'clock at night. So I was like, you got to give yourself a break, Stephen. so that's a real world example of, I was actually able to forgive and soften as the day
As
progressed.
the day
And
progressed.
I was able to talk myself around and go, hey man, relax. Like,
That's good. That's really good to hear. And yeah, to lean in on your self-forgiveness, let's agree that given the work you did on Sunday, even if you got up at 11 a.m. on Monday morning, that's the equivalent of 6 a.m. given the overtime you'd done the day before. So yeah, good. Glad that you were able to soften your position as the day went on. That being the third of the 3 words of your New Year's affirmations. Remind me of them again. There's it's consistency,
and
balance,
balance
and
and
then and softening.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the softening would come into play, just to loop back to where we started today. The softening would come into play in that moment with the meat. If I just remembered that word, I could have sat there. Do you know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah, you could have sat there and what?
I could have sat there and just let it be.
And just
And
allow it to be.
yeah, because I didn't win anything by doing that action. I didn't change any minds. All I did was create an awkward silence for about 10 seconds, which felt longer and made people think that, oh, here's the fucking vegetarian again, making his point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Although maybe they initially thought that, or some of them did, but then as they maybe thought a little longer about it, they may have reflected and went, oh, he did say no 6 times. Maybe we just revved him up into that. Oh dear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should listen a little bit more when people say no, thank you first time. I mean, who knows how people reflected on it individually eventually. But yeah, okay. I think at the time you could have just sat there and just had allowance, just to allow it to be, just to allow things to be, allow it to be for it already is. Allow it to be for it already is.
Like that.
And there is an empowerment. There's a real strength in that. A real strength. One can feel very, very powerful holding that position, and it can you can put into a multiple of contexts. Multiple of contexts. Sitting with a friend who's communicating or talking in a manner that's unsavory, or you don't like the tone, or well, allow your friend to be, for he already is. He's already like that. He's already there. That's where he's at. It's not on us to always have to react, respond, to try and alter or change the reality of what's going on opposite us or in our room, in the environment we're in. Just allowance, allow things to be. I will say though that in having your little moment and then doing your semi storm off from the kitchen or whatever.
Oh no, I sat back down.
You sat back down. All right, okay, right.
Yeah.
So no, in my head,
No, I didn't leave the room.
You didn't leave the room. Oh, damn! I had doors slamming. I had everything. No,
I sat back down and smiled and kept going.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a moment. Now you're saying, look, part of me, Zach, you said, part of me wanted to communicate something to them in that moment. I don't think you used those words, but you did say, a little part of you sort of wanted them to hear your annoyance, your
Mm.
frustration.
Mm.
Okay, so you achieved that for sure. They did pay attention. That brought a pause to the dinner. So, if you wanted to be heard, because you weren't being heard, right? You were not being heard up to that point. You were being disregarded. Probably
Mm.
unintentional from those. They were just trying to be polite and sort of good hosts. But you weren't being heard. You weren't being acknowledged. Your needs were not being acknowledged. So you eventually had to, you know, um, make a stand. You had to either higher the volume or sharpen your words, and that stopped everybody. And then you were heard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you heard? You'd prefer to have been heard when you said no, thank you, a minute previous when you were first offered the potatoes.
Yeah.
But but the circumstances, you cannot control people. They did not behave in that manner of listening to you first time. So when the fifth or sixth time, when it tipped you over and you had to change your communication style to make your point, well, you did, and you made your point. And yes, it was socially awkward, but part of me thinks it was worth it.
Mm.
There's a part of me going, yeah, well, he was heard in the end. You made that happen. Um, but I also think it's an option to just allow it to be and sit with oneself and know that it's only potatoes. They put them on the plate. You don't eat them. You get up subtly in a while. You go in, you switch your plate in the kitchen. There's so many other ways one could deal with that. But I mean, the point is that I think even the way you did respond, there's validity to it. There's it's still
Yeah.
achieved. It's still achieved. That's sort of my position on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah. In your 3 words for the new year, I love the softening one. That's really appeals to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other two are a little bit more generic, but very important. Very, very important. The balance piece. My God, what a challenge there is with that. But the softening, that sort of made me sit up and pay attention a little bit more. And I like it. To soften one's approach to self primarily. It just echoes of self forgiveness, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what comes up for me when I hear you talking about, to soften. I hear more self forgiveness, more self care. Was that your intention, or what comes up for you when you think of the softening?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's there for sure. But if I'm honest, it's probably not the first thing that's there. It's more just my outlook and how from inside this head of mine and how I look out upon the world. And um yeah, I think that, like, I don't know. It's so funny because we don't really know ourselves, really. We don't really know. We think we know ourselves, but we don't really know how we are perceived. Um, I suppose that I would see myself as being quite a gentle person and a caring person. But along with that, in my outlook, my world outlook, there's a lot of, I want to say, bristliness. There's a lot of spikiness, and it affects my psyche. It affects how I go about the day. Um, you know, I get fucking pissed off with so many things, you know, and
Yeah.
like, and like really probably more than most people, which actually might surprise a lot of people if they were to hear that about me, because I do come across, I think, as fairly kind of, you know, gentle. I think, but then again, I could be completely wrong. But I think I come
I
across as
don't think
fairly
you're
gentle.
completely wrong. I think you come across um, to be in your presence. You come across as charming, warm, smiley. You know,
Mm,
you have a very non-threatening presence. There's
mm-hmm,
a, there's a softness there. So whatever sort of pissed off feelings are going on in under the waterline,
Yeah.
you know, by and large, I think you hide them very, very well. You mask quite brilliantly.
Yeah. Yeah, but and I must stress though, like to you, it's not intentional. Like the smiley stuff is very real. It's very authentically
Oh
me. I
yes, it is
think,
authentic. Yeah, absolutely.
it comes from a lot of different things, and one of them being, wanting to please people, wanting people to be happy, lots of nice things, lots of good things, but um, but yes, at the same time, there is this whole undercurrent of fucking fuck off.
Yeah.
And I know that I can. What? No, I didn't know until recently. I am becoming aware more and more of the option. There's an option there of not having to live like that. And I don't even know if this is like, you could tell me more than I could. Is this a new feature of mine that I'm a bit like fuck the fuck off? Or is it something that I've always carried with me? I don't know. I can't really tell you that. However, I am becoming aware of the fact that I don't need to live like this, that I don't need to have this kind of judgmental head on me going around thinking drive better, you know, dress better, fucking think better, whatever. It's like, it's not my, and it's like what you said to me when we started these sessions again, you just you don't need to keep thinking about everyone around you, and I need to keep remembering this. Anyway, I'll stop talking for a
Oh, okay.
second.
Quite.
I'll let you talk for a second. I feel like you
Yeah.
have more to say.
Well, I mean, I think, your inner grump that you say has come out to play a little bit more in recent times. I think when I first met you and start working with you, there was such a repression to your emotional
Mm,
needs, and you had to work so hard on being able to bring your needs to the surface and to satisfy those needs and to self-soothe and self-heal, that over time you have learned to be more and more authentic. And therefore, as you become more and more authentic with yourself, maybe more of that true grumble and gravel that's in you, the giving out, maybe that just rises to the surface, as part of that process, as part of that journey. So, it's not as if the things that piss you off and that you give out about each day, it's not as if they break down your friendships or your relationships or your working relationships with those around you. The impact is still very well contained by you. It doesn't mean you're having arguments in the middle of the supermarket every other day. It's not that you're becoming known locally as, the grumpy guy to avoid in the park. So, you contain it quite well. Yes?
oh yeah, yeah, for
You
sure.
contain it very well. So,
Most of the time.
yeah, most of the time. And sometimes when you don't contain it, it's appropriate to communicate it out to those around you, given the context of what's going on in that moment. So, and we don't want you containing it all of the time. We do want it out some of the time as well, as part of that balance. That need to express your needs. So, yeah, I mean, what's important is the fact that um, that you're expressing, that you are expressing more and more that of which you think and feel. Now, the fact that, part of that expression is grumbly topics, things that sort of annoy you, piss you off. Okay, that's fine. We take that on the chin. We'll work with that. But I'm just glad that there's more and more expression going on. The fact that there's more expression is just fundamentally a good thing. And I know that you've got pretty good balance around that. So, but that's not to disregard the importance of you bringing it up as a topic. The thing that the idea that things piss you off more than you would like, I think, is what you're saying. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, you know, in your current circumstances, in your relationship at home, in your connection with those within your community or even your friends, whether it's online through message or in person, in your life at the moment, Stephen, are you heard?
I think so, by the people that matter, yeah.
Okay, good. Are they balanced and consistent with that listening? No. That's okay. But by and large, you feel heard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, like my parents would be obviously two important people in my life. I mean, my mother doesn't understand my kind of lifestyle choice of wanting to move and travel and stuff. I keep telling her, these different things. She's one person who just I cannot get to hear me, but that's okay. I've come to peace with that. And yeah, the rest, like Rebecca knows me and hears me, and that's really all that matters to me. Is the person I see every single day gets me. Yeah,
Most of the time.
most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have that in your life. I'm really glad. I'm glad that you have settled with, or you're just happy to allow your mum to be in her attitude or in her position that she holds around certain things in your life. I'm glad you you allow that. You're able to allow that to be. Or maybe you even go beyond that. Maybe you have fully accepted. But I've always said, just let's be happy enough with allowing. Allowance is enough. Yeah. So we're up and running. January, first session in. Great to connect again with you today. I think off the back of today, let's pick a jumping point for session next week. So off the back of today's conversation and exploration, what would you like our launch point to be for the start of session next time round? What's your thoughts on that?
An interesting question that I don't really know if I have an answer to it right now.
Well, do you want it to be a contemplation over lunch today for you to come back with, to sort of surprise me with next day, rather than just in the moment now I have sprung it on you. Do you want to give it some thought and sort of just prep it for next time?
Yeah, I think so, because okay. I feel like we can. I'll find a better answer if we leave it settle.
And to nudge you in a direction, if you need a nudge, your 3 words for the new year. They're great as a starting point, and they're self-explanatory in many ways. But there's also a real value in expanding out on those terms and breaking them down in finer detail as part of your New Year's approach to things. So maybe you could bring that into your thinking when you're thinking about next session. Okay. Good. Okay, you have a nice day.
Okay, Zach.
Have a great day, actually.
You too.
And we'll talk soon.
Disclaimer. The opinions expressed by our presenters are entirely their own. We believe in fostering an environment that values intellectual diversity, enabling our presenters to share their unique insights and viewpoints. It is crucial for our audience to recognise that the opinions articulated during the course of this programme are those of the individual presenters and do not reflect or represent any other individuals, agencies or organisations. If you wish to contact Zach Powers, please email him at bergenpsychological.com. If you wish to contact Stephen, please go to stephendaltonvo.com.